Hi, and welcome to Sleepypedia. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the North Hollywood Shootout, and yeah, you were in for a treat, I have to tell you that. So, here we go. The North Hollywood Shootout was a confrontation between two heavily armed and armored bank robbers. Larry Phillips Jr. and Emil Matassarianu and members of the Los Angeles Police Department in North Hollywood District of Los Angeles, California, United States, on February 28, 1979. Both robbers were killed. 12 police officers and 8 civilians were injured, and numerous vehicles and other property were damaged or destroyed by the nearly 2,000 rounds of ammunition fired by the robbers and police. At 9:16 a.m., Phillips and Matassarianu, I'm just gonna call him Mata now because that's way easier and I won't fuck up that often. So at 9:16 a.m., Phillips and Mata entered and robbed Bank of America's North Hollywood branch. The two robbers were confronted by LAPD officers when they exited the bank, and a shootout between the officers and robbers ensued. The robbers attempted to flee the scene, Phillips on foot and Mata in their getaway vehicle, while continuing to exchange fire with the officers. The shootout continued onto a residential street adjacent to the bank until Phillips, mortally wounded, succumbed to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Mata was incapacitated by officers 3 blocks away and subsequently bled to death before the arrival of paramedics more than an hour later. Phillips and Mata had robbed at least 2 other banks using similar methods for entry past bulletproof security doors, taking control of the entire bank by firing weapons illegally modified to enable fully automatic fire. They were also suspects in 2 armored car robberies. Standard issue sidearms carried by most local patrol officers at the time were 9mm pistols or .38 special revolvers. Some patrol cars were also equipped with a 12-gauge shotgun. Philip and Mata carried Norinco Type 5.6 rifles, a Chinese AK-47 variant, a Bushmaster XM15 dissipator with a 100-round drum magazine, and a Heckler & Koch HK91 rifle, all of which, except for the HK91, had been illegally modified to be select fire capable, as well as a Beretta 92 FS pistol. The robbers wore homemade body armor, which successfully protected them from handgun rounds and shotgun pellets fired by the responding officers. A law enforcement SWAT team eventually arrived with higher caliber weapons, but they had little effect on the heavy body armor used by the two perpetrators. The SWAT team also commandeered an armored car to evacuate the wounded. Several officers additionally equipped themselves with AR-15s and other semi-automatic rifles from a nearby firearms dealer. The incident sparked debate on the need for patrol officers to upgrade their firepower in preparation for similar situations in the future. Due to the large number of injuries and rounds fired, equipment used by the robbers, and overall length of the shootout, it is regarded as one of the most intense and significant gun battles in US police history. Combined, the two men had fired approximately 1,100 rounds in total, while approximately 650 rounds were fired by police. Another estimate that a total of nearly 2,000 rounds were fired collectively. Backgrounds: Larry Eugene Phillips Jr., born 20th of September 1970, and the Romanian-born Decebal Stefan Emilian Emil Matassarianu, born July 19th of 1966, first met in a Gold's Gym in Venice, Los Angeles, California, in 1989. Phillips, 5 feet 10 tall and 193 pounds, and Mata, 6 feet tall and 330 pounds, had mutual interests in weightlifting, bodybuilding, and firearms. Before meeting, Phillips was a habitual offender responsible for multiple real estate scams and counts of shoplifting. Mata was a qualified electrical engineer and ran a relatively unsuccessful computer repair business. On July 20th, 1993, Phillips and Mata robbed an armored car outside a branch of First Bank in Littleton, Colorado. On October 29th, they were arrested in Glendale, northeast of Los Angeles, for operating a stolen vehicle. A subsequent search of their vehicle after Phillips surrendered with a concealed weapon found 2 semi-automatic rifles, 2 handguns, more than 1,600 rounds of rifle ammunition, 1,200 rounds of 9x19mm parabellum, and .45 ACP handgun ammunition, radio scanners, smoke bombs, improvised explosive devices, body armor vests, and 3 different California license plates. Well, that's a lot of stuff to put in a car. Wow. Initially charged with conspiracy to commit robbery, both served 100 days in jail and were placed on 3 years of probation due to plea bargaining. After their release, most of their seized property was returned to them, except for the confiscated firearms and explosives. On June 14, 1995, Phillips and Mata ambushed a Brinks armored car in Winnetka, Los Angeles, killing 1 guard, Hammond Cook, and seriously wounding another. In May 1996, they robbed 2 branches of Bank of America in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles, stealing approximately $1.5 million. The pair were dubbed the High Incident Bandits by investigators due to the weaponry they had used in 3 robberies prior to their attempt in North Hollywood. The robbery. Preparation. On the morning of February 28, 1997, after months of preparation that included extensive reconnoitering of their intended target, the Bank of America branch located at 6600 Laurel Canyon Boulevard, Phillips and Mata armed themselves with a semi-automatic HK-91 and several illegally converted weapons, 2 Norinco Type 56S rifles, a fully automatic Norinco Type 56S-1, and a fully automatic Bushmaster XM15 dissipator, The robbers allegedly filled a jam jar with gasoline and placed it in the back seat with the intention of setting the car and weapons on fire to destroy evidence after the robbery. Phillips wore roughly 40 pounds of equipment, including a Type 3A bulletproof vest and groin guard, a load-bearing vest with multiple military ammo pouches, and several pieces of homemade body armor created from spare vests covering his shins, thighs, and forearms. Mata wore only a Type 3 bulletproof vest, but included a metal ballistic plate to protect his vital organs. Additionally, each man had a watch sewn onto the back of one glove in order to monitor their timing. Before entering, they took the barbiturate phenobarbital, described to Mata as a sedative to calm their nerves. The forensic toxicology laboratory of the coroner's office later also found ephedrine and phenylpropanolamine in Phillips' blood and phenytonin in Mata's blood. Bank robbery. Phillips and Mata, driving a white 1987 Chevrolet Celebrity, arrived at the Bank of America branch at the intersection of Laurel Canyon Boulevard and Archwood Street in North Hollywood around 9:16 a.m. and set their watch alarms for 8 minutes, the police response time they had estimated. To come up with this time frame, Phillips had used a radio scanner to monitor police transmissions prior to the robbery. As the two were walking in, they were spotted by 2 LAPD officers, Lauren Farrell and Martin Perello, who were driving down Laurel Canyon in a patrol car. Officer Farrell issued a call on the radio, 15A43 requesting assistance. We have a possible 211 in progress at the Bank of America. 211 is the code for robbery. As they entered the bank, each armed with a Norinco Type 56S-1 rifle, Phillips and Mata forced a customer leaving the ATM lobby near the entrance into the bank and onto the floor. A security guard inside saw the scuffle and heavily armed robbers and radioed his partner in the parking lot to call the police. His call was not received. Phillips shouted, "This is a fucking holdup," before he and Mata opened fire into the ceiling in an attempt to scare their approximately 30 bank staff and customers and to discourage resistance. Mata shot open the bulletproof door, which was designed to resist only low-velocity rounds, and gained access to the tellers and vault. The robbers forced assistant manager John Villagrana to open the vault. Villagrana obliged and began to fill the robbers' money bag. However, due to a change in the bank's delivery schedule, the vault contained significantly less than the $750,000 the gunman had expected. Mata, enraged at this development, argued with Villagrana and demanded more. In an apparent show of frustration, Mata then fired a full drum magazine of 75 rounds into the bank safe, destroying much of the remaining money. He then attempted to open the bank's ATM, but due to a change in their policies, the branch manager no longer had access to the money inside. Before leaving, the robbers locked the hostages in the bank vault. In the end, the two left with $303,305 and 3 die packs, which later exploded, ruining the money they had stolen. The shootout. Outside, the first responding officers heard gunfire from the bank and made another radio call for additional units before taking cover behind their patrol cars, weapons trained on the bank doors. While the robbers were still inside, more patrol and detective units arrived and took strategic positions at all 4 corners of the bank, effectively surrounding it. At approximately 9:24 a.m., Phillips exited through the north doorway and, after spotting a police cruiser 200 feet away, opened fire for several minutes, wounding 7 officers and 3 other civilians. He also fired at an LAPD helicopter flown by Charles D. Paraguay Jr., which was surveying above, forcing it to withdraw to a safer distance. He briefly retreated inside, then re-emerged through the north doorway, while Mata exited through the south exit. Phillips and Mata began to engage the officers, firing sporadic bursts into the patrol cars that have been positioned on Laurel Canyon in front of the bank. Officers armed with standard Beretta 95F, Beretta 92 5S 9mm pistols, Smith & Wesson Model 15.38 special revolvers, and a 12-gauge Ithaca Model 37 pump-action shotgun immediately returned fire. The officers' weaponry could not penetrate the body armor worn by Phillips and Mata, and most of the LAPD officers' service pistols had insufficient range and poor accuracy for long distances. An officer was heard on the LAPD police frequency approximately 10 to 15 minutes into the shootout, warning other officers that they should not stop the getaway vehicle. "They've got automatic weapons. There's nothing we have that can stop them." Additionally, the officers were pinned down by the heavy spray of gunfire coming from the robbers, making it difficult to attempt a headshot. Several officers acquired 5 AR-15 style rifles from a nearby gun store to combat the robbers. 2 locations adjacent to the north parking lot provided good cover for officers and detectives. Police likely shot Phillips with their handguns while Phillips was firing and taking cover near the 4 vehicles adjacent to the north wall of the bank. One location that Officer Zelensky of Valet Traffic Division used for cover was the Del Taco restaurant west wall, 351 feet from Phillips. Zelensky fired 86 9mm rounds at Phillips and may have had Phillips at least once. The other location that proved advantageous for the LAPD was the backyard of 6641 Agnes Avenue. A cinder block wall provided cover for detectives shooting at Phillips with 9mm rounds from their pistols. Detective Bancroft and Detective Harley in particular fired between 15 and 24 rounds at Phillips from a distance of approximately 55 feet. After Mata backed the Chevrolet Celebrity out of the handicapped space in the north parking lot, Phillips received a gunshot wound to his left wrist based upon helicopter news footage that showed him react to pain. At the same approximate time, LAPD gunfire struck the Heckler & Koch rifle that Phillips was firing, rendering it inoperable with a penetration to the receiver. Phillips discarded it and rearmed himself with another assault rifle from the trunk of the sedan. Arrival of SWAT team. After LAPD radio operators received the second officer down call from police at the shootout, a tactical alert was issued. The SWAT team, Donnie Anderson, Steve Gomez, Peter Weyreiter, and Richard Massa, arrived 18 minutes after the shooting had begun. They were armed with AR-15s and wore running boots and shorts under their body armor, as they had been on an exercise run when they received the call. Upon arrival, they commandeered a nearby armored truck, which was used to extract wounded civilians and officers from the scene. Deaths of the gunmen. While still in the parking lot, Mata was shot in the right buttock, the right leg, and the left forearm. A fourth projectile then lacerated his upper right eye socket and prompted him to duck behind the hood of the getaway car in shock. He subsequently abandoned his duffel bag of money, entering the getaway vehicle, and started the engine. Phillips received the HK-91 from the open trunk and continued firing upon officers while walking alongside the sedan, using it for cover. As Phillips approached the passenger's side of the getaway vehicle, he was hit in the shoulder and his rifle was struck in the receiver and magazine by bullets fired by the police. After firing a few more shots with one arm, Phillips discarded the HK-91 and retrieved the Norinco Type 5.6 before exiting the parking lot and retreating onto the street while Mata drove down the road. At 9:52 a.m., Phillips turned east on Archwood Street and took cover behind a parked semi-truck where he continued to fire at the police. Lieutenant Michael Renshaw, officers Conrado Torres, John Carapelli, and Ed Brentlinger, until his rifle was jammed. Unable to clear the jam, he dropped the rifle and drew a Beretta 92 FS pistol, which he began firing. He was then shot in the right hand by Officer Conrado Torres, causing him to drop the pistol. After retrieving it, he placed the muzzle under his chin and fired. As he fell, Officer John Caporelli shot him in the upper torso, severing his spine. Either bullet may have been fatal. Officers across the street continued to shoot Phillips' body several times while he was on the ground. After the firing had stopped, officers in the area surrounded Phillips, handcuffed him, and removed his ski mask. Mata's vehicle was rendered inoperable after two of its tires were shot out and the windshield covered in bullet holes. At 9:56 a.m., he attempted to carjack a yellow 1963 Jeep Gladiator on Archwood by shooting at the driver, who fled on foot 3 blocks east of where Phillips died. He quickly transferred all of his weapons and ammunition from the getaway car, but was unable to operate the Jeep due to the driver engaging the electrical kill switch before fleeing. As KCBS and KCAL helicopters hovered overhead, a patrol car driven by SWAT officers Donnie Anderson, Steve Gomez, and Richard Massa quickly arrived and stopped on the opposite side of the truck to where the Chevrolet was stopped. Mata left the truck, took cover behind the original getaway vehicle, and engaged them in 2.5 minutes of almost uninterrupted gunfire. Mata's chest armor deflected a double tap from SWAT Officer Anderson, which briefly winded him before he continued firing. Anderson fired his AR-15 below the cars and wounded Mata in his unprotected lower legs. He was soon unable to continue and put his hands up to show surrender. Seconds after Mata's capitulation, officers rushed him to pin him down. He was being cuffed. SWAT officers asked for his name, to which he replied, Pete. When asked if there were any more suspects, he reportedly said, "Fuck you, shoot me in the head." Ambulance personnel were following standard procedure in hostile situations by refusing to enter the hot zone, as the area was not cleared and Mata was still considered to be dangerous. The police radioed for an ambulance, but Mata, loudly swearing profusely and still goading the police to shoot him, died before the ambulance and EMTs were allowed to reach the scene almost 70 minutes later. During the lawsuit against retired policemen John Futrell and James Wojciecki and the city, jurors heard a testimony that involved an ambulance crew that arrived but left without Mata after Wojciecki allegedly told the crew to get the fuck out of here. During the trial, Wojciecki testified he said something similar. The ambulance driver testified he believes he was in danger by being in the area. The officers testified they tried to get the ambulance to come back or to get another one, but the plaintiffs focused on a point at which Futrell cancelled an ambulance call and told the dispatcher, "I have no officers or citizens down, only a suspect." Later reports showed that Mata had been shot 29 times in the legs and died from trauma due to excessive blood loss from 2 gunshot wounds in his left thigh. Most of the incident, including the death of Phillips and surrender of Mata, was broadcasted live by news helicopters, which hovered over the scene and televised the action as events unfolded. Over 300 law enforcement officers from various forces had responded to the citywide tactical alert. By the time the shooting had stopped, Phillips and Mata had fired around 1,100 rounds, approximately a round every 2 seconds. Aftermath. The shootout contributed to motivating the arming of rank-and-file police officers in Los Angeles and nationwide with semi-automatic rifles. The ineffectiveness of the standard small-caliber police pistols and shotguns in penetrating the robber's body armor led to a trend in the United States toward arming selected police patrol officers, not just SWAT teams, with heavier firepower, such as semi-automatic AR-15 style rifles. SWAT teams whose close-quarter battle weaponry usually consisted of submachine guns that fired pistol cartridges, such as the Heckler & Koch MP5, began supplementing with AR-15 rifles and carbines. On April 17, 1997, police raided a house in Anaheim traced to Phillips and Mata. Among the items seized included incendiary ammunition, flak jackets, and ballistic helmets. Approximately $400,000 in stolen cash and various firearms. One particular firearm, a short-barreled AR-15 with an aftermarket red dot sight, was later released from evidence for use by law enforcement agency. 7 months after the incident, the Department of Defense gave 600 surplus M16 rifles to the LAPD, which were issued to each patrol sergeant. LAPD patrol vehicles began carrying AR-15s as standard issue, with bullet-resistant Kevlar platings in their doors as well. As a result of this incident, LAPD authorized its officers to carry .45 ACP caliber semi-automatic pistols as duty sidearms, especially the Smith & Wesson models 4506 and 4566. Prior to 1997, only LAPD SWAT officers were authorized to carry .45 ACP caliber pistol ammunition, especially the M1611A1 .45 ACP semi-automatic pistol. On June 12, 1998, LAPD Chief of Police Bernard C. Parks released to the Board of Police Commissioners a memorandum detailing his review of officers' use of force during the February 28, 1997 North Hollywood Shootout. The memorandum contains many details about the shootout, including badge numbers of officers and detectives, where they positioned themselves in the perimeter around the robbers, with distances of fire and how many rounds they fired from their weapons. Parks commended department personnel for their actions to distract the robbers and obstruct the robbers from attempting to evade police. The memorandum lists the injuries of all officers who received injuries at the hand of the robbers. A lawsuit on behalf of Mata's children was filed by lawyer Stephen Yagman against members of the LAPD, claiming Mata's civil rights had been violated and that he was allowed to bleed to death. The lawsuit was tried in United States District Court in February and March 2000. And ended in a mistrial with a hung jury. The suit was later dropped when Mata's family agreed to dismiss the action with a waiver of malicious prosecution. The year following the shootout, 18 officers of the LAPD received the Departmental Medal of Valor for their actions and met President Bill Clinton. The final episode of the DreamWorks television police drama series High Incident featured an armed robbery that was based upon this event. In 2003, a film about the incident was produced titled 44 Minutes, The North Hollywood Shootout. 2004, the Los Angeles Police Museum in Highland Park opened an exhibit featuring 2 life-sized mannequins of Phillips and Mata, fitted with similar armor and clothing they wore and weaponry they used. Also on display at the museum is the robber's getaway car and Officer Martin Whitfield's LAPD squad car. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very, very much for listening today. I hope you're asleep by now. Yeah, good night.